Hello, everyone, and welcome into the new and improved To The Point podcast. Everybody's having a great Monday. I know I am. Excited to be here with all of you tonight. It truly is a special show. The rebirth of To The Point. It's exciting. Big show tonight, as I said. We're getting back started. Doug MacLean is going to join me in about an hour. We got a lot of weekend sports to recap, a lot to get into, and of course, get involved in the conversation. You got a question for Doug, and it's appropriate, and I think it's a good one. I'll ask it to him. So leave that in the comments, and I'll ask Doug when we get to that at about 6 o'clock local time here. But what a weekend in sports. I look at it, and for me, it was, to nobody's surprise, I bounced around. We're getting into March. Watched a lot of college basketball. I actually watched a lot of NBA over the weekend. Watched some of that crazy Leaf game. But, I'm scrolling through channels. I got the computer, I got the TV simultaneously. And I just see Tampa Bay, Nashville. And I say, okay, well, I'll throw this on. I'll give it a watch. And I realize it's a stadium series. It's an outdoor game, which I follow hockey pretty closely. I follow sports pretty damn closely. At least I think so. I had zero clue that there was an outdoor game this weekend. And this is where I get a little perplexed, and I get a little, I don't even know the right word. I get a little annoyed by the marketing program of the NHL that, first of all, I didn't know about the outdoor game. They didn't tell us. They didn't make it a spectacle. It was two good teams that are in a playoff position right now. But it's also, if I did know it was an outdoor game, would I watch it? And would I go to my way to watch it? And the answer for me is no. And if you follow us on Instagram, To The Point Podcast, go. There's a poll right now on our story. Are there too many NHL outdoor games? Yes or no? Right now, majority of people are telling us no, there's not too many. It's just, it's good enough. To me, I like that it was in Nashville. I thought that was cool. I did find it strange that Gary Bettman opened up the door for the Predators to come out of. I found that strange. We all know Gary Bettman's favorite NHL franchise is the Arizona Coyotes. But why was he there with Pecorine? He represents the NHL. I don't think he should be diving into one particular pool, if you will. But I found that was strange. But I'd prefer if they had one outdoor game a year and it would be on January 1st, because it separates, it puts you in a position where you know what's coming. Every year, January 1st, you have an outdoor game. It's New Year's Day. It sets a precedent. Around the same time, the college football playoff on New Year's Eve, you have your semifinals that day. There's just certain days you have penciled in. The first weekend in April, it's Augusta National. It's the golf season, the best major of the year. To me, having 3, 4, 5 of these outdoor games, it just waters down your product. It doesn't make me want to go watch it, quite frankly. And I look at the game itself. It was a pretty good game. I watched majority of it, but also, I see after I looked it up because I wanted to be prepared for the show today. There's an outdoor game in a few weeks between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres. And I get why the NHL is doing this. I'm not an idiot. It's the Maple Leafs. I'm sure they'll get good ratings. Leaf fans will watch it. It is on a Sunday afternoon, which is rare for a Leaf game. But why would anybody want to watch that game? Buffalo stinks. The Leafs should crush them by 3 to 4 goals. There's nothing appetizing about that game. 5 o'clock on a Sunday, if you're out with kids, if you're gone for the day, nobody's rushing home to watch that game. And I think it's the same thing Saturday night. It's an 8:30 start here in Atlanta, Canada. That's fine. I'm fine with the start time. But also, who's rushing to see that game? And I get Tampa, Nashville might not be the sexiest names, but if you didn't even know about it, if it's not like It's February, whatever it was, 26 on Saturday. Who knows that there's an outdoor game? Nobody. And yes, it was a 1-goal game. That's a check mark. And normally these outdoor games are close in scores. That's a good thing. A lot of that has to do with ice conditions and how poor or how good they ultimately are. But I just don't think we need this many. I don't think we need more than one every year. And I think it's different from the All-Star game. If the outdoor game has to be Toronto, Detroit every year because that's what sells, then that's what it has to be. And fan bases will complain, of course, because it's the Leafs getting special treatment, or it's the Bruins getting the outdoor game, which the Bruins are getting one next year. So growing markets, you can do it, but I don't think it has to be outdoor game for you in the middle of February, because who cares? It's not something where you say, okay, I'm going to go out of my way to watch this. And again, the game has to be spectacular for it to be memorable. What I remember about the outdoor game, less about the product, I remember Gary Bettman opening the door, which is strange. And then my second takeaway was to open up the game in a very awkward, really weird stance. You see Dustin Lynch come out with a bunch of dancers singing songs. And I'm like, well, why Dustin Lynch? First of all, I saw Jason Aldean was at the game. I'm not as big a country music fan as I was even 3 to 4 years ago. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Dustin Lynch is exactly the top dog in country music right now. You couldn't get Aldean. Chesney wasn't in the area. He was in Margaritaville. You couldn't give him a stipend to come back to Nashville to do a quick gig and then hop on a bird and get the hell out of there. It was just a weird night. And a lot of these outdoor games are not great conditions. You get a band that nobody particularly cares about, and you're just done with it. I don't think it's a problem. I'm sure it made money, but Nashville has a good crowd. They're a team I'd love to go see a live game in Nashville. I mean, you don't got to convince me to go to Nashville on a trip. That's number one on my bucket list in all of the world. But they don't need this outdoor game. They sell tickets. The problem is these markets that don't sell tickets, that don't get asses in the seats, like Buffalo, it's a Buffalo home game, but it's in Ontario. So it's basically saying, Leaf fans, please come to this game, which they will, of course. They'll spend the money to go watch their Leafs. But Arizona, Columbus, these small market teams, New Jersey, they're not going to get an outdoor game in New Jersey at home. You know why? Because nobody's going to go. Nobody cares. It's like the All-Star game in hockey as well. Why does every team need a representative? And I'm sure the league will say, well, it grows the product. It grows the game. Does it really? Does it really? Or are the small market teams that struggle with attendance, that struggle with fans caring about their players, buying memorabilia, purchasing merchandise, still have those same issues down the line? I still think they have those same issues. Because the small market teams, when I was a toddler, are still the same small market teams. It's rare it flips. You know when it flips? When those small market teams are good. The Prudential Center in New Jersey has a crowd when the New Jersey Devils are good. They're not right now. They're not. So people don't go. When they had Scott Stevens and Martin Brodeur, Patrick Iliash, and the cast of characters, and they were winning Stanley Cups routinely in the playoffs, people showed up. When they're 12th in the Eastern Conference, you couldn't name their goaltender, and they're irrelevant, nobody cared. It's as easy as it gets. People don't care. But again, the outdoor game, take it or leave it. It's not my personally favorite thing, but I watched the game, so the NHL got me. They suckered me in. I watched the game because why not? Yeah, Saturday night, like I said, I was bouncing around between a bunch of things. I watched a lot of the Nets-Bucks game. I started off by watching that Leafs-Red Wings game. And I watched it for a bit, and I turned it off because I thought the game was over. I mean, it was 6-1. Toronto Maple Leafs' first line of Matthews, Bunting, and Marner were playing fantastic as they have been for 98.9% of this season. But I turn away for a few minutes. I look, it's 6-3, 6-4. And all of a sudden, I'm watching the end of the game because I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And it ultimately ends up being 10-7 for the Maple Leafs. Detroit yanked Alex Nedeljkovic after 3 goals. In comes Thomas Greiss. Greiss gets yanked after giving up 5. Back comes Nedeljkovic. It was just a crazy game. But Detroit's not going to make the playoffs. Detroit has some really good young players, including Moritz Seider, who I'm huge on, who I think is right up there in the Calder conversation. But I had 2 takeaways from not just this game, but the Maple Leafs as a whole. And it's this debate of, is the Leafs goaltending really struggling, just having a dip, or is their defensive play just this horrid? And it's a tough balance to figure out because I look at Jack Campbell and it's hard to defend him because since January 1st, he has an .887 save percentage. That's terrible. He's let in 9 4-goal games since January 1st. That's the most in the NHL. That is not good, obviously. And he's been yanked, pulled 3 times. So I think the Maple Leafs are in a spot here. And I think Maple Leaf fans, I don't think if you have a panic button and it goes from 1 to 10, you should be a 10. However, I don't think you should be a 1 or a 2. I think you're right in the middle, 5, 6 range, because it's getting to a point right now, and this could change for the end of the year. I expect it to. At least I think it will. That Peter Mrazek is back in the discussion for being the number 1 goaltender of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And there was this kumbaya, Jack Campbell's the number 1 goaltender of the future. He's going to get a 5-year extension, $5-6 million. He's our next Ed Belfour. He's Cujo 2.0. We're stoked to have him. Yeah, I don't feel that way. And I'm good for Kyle Dubas to not sign him already because he'd be in a world of hurt right now. But Jack Campbell has already made more starts this year than he has in one season his entire career. He looks tired. He looks out of sorts. He looks like he's lacking confidence. And now we sit where Mrazek struggled against Montreal. Then he played extremely well against Minnesota, a very good team. And you look at it, tonight Leafs are in the nation's capital playing the Washington Capitals. Well, who's getting the start? It's not Jack Campbell. It's Peter Mrazek. It's an open competition right now. Absolutely is. And to me, this is how Kyle Dubas envisioned it. I don't think he wanted Jack Campbell to play as poorly as he has over the last 2 months. However, Peter Mrazek had more of a track record than Jack Campbell. And that includes this past offseason because unlike Jack Campbell, Peter Mrazek has won playoff rounds, plural. He got to an Eastern Conference final with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's been on teams that have advanced in the playoffs. He's been in those crucial situations where Jack Campbell has competed in one playoff series and didn't have a great Game 7 against the Montreal Canadiens last summer. So I wouldn't panic, but I would worry about that because I think I've said this past couple weeks. Toronto Maple Leafs are in a position where I think the original thought was we have superstar players, which they do. We're in a position where we could win Stanley Cups in the coming years. I don't think they should feel that way anymore. They should feel like we are in a window where we need to get one, that's all we can get. Because the salary cap structure is tough. Their defense core is constantly moving. It's never solid. It's never something you're 100% confident in. So I look at the team and I say, you need at least 2 defensemen on the back end. They got Ilya Lyubushkin, who's a good pickup. He's a 5th, 6th defenseman. You know what he's going to do. Straight line guy, chip it off the glass, be physical, check. I still think they need 2 pieces. And I'll say this till the cows come home, but Ben Sherratt would be right there for me. Ben Sherratt is a proven playoff defender. He's a proven team guy. He's a proven he knows how to play his role just about as good as anybody in the NHL. He's not going to have an ego. He's not going to complain. He's going to come in and just play hockey. That's what you love about Ben Sherratt. Does he have the upside of a Jacob Chychrun or a John Klingberg? No. But I don't think he'll cost as much as those 2 defensemen either. The Maple Leafs don't have a ton of assets. They've traded away a lot of assets. And to me, it's really obvious. I mean, they played Nick Robertson over the weekend. They played Nick Robertson to showcase the kid. And do I think Dubas would like to go through a trade deadline, get players, and not have to deal him? Of course. I mean, that's every general manager's dream, is to, okay, we got this player. You could have him, but maybe we can make a deal without you getting our top prospect. And, you know, he's barely played in the NHL level. I can see why the Leafs love him, because he's a Kyle Dubas special. He's a small forward. He brings no physicality to the table. He has to play in a top 6 role, or he's basically useless to have on the ice. And that's how I looked at Saturday night. I don't think he played bad. I don't think he played good. He was playing on the 4th line, where you're playing with Engvall and you're playing with guys who lack offensive creativity. For a player like him, you're not going to have that much success. Just point blank. You're not, because you need guys to create with you. You need guys to be difference makers on the ice. Nick Robertson is alone with a couple pylons. Simmons and Engvall aren't going to do that. They're going to play their 4th line role, play it effectively, but when it comes to offensive creativity, I just don't think it's there. But, you know, they can't trade Rodion Amirov. Last week, we learned Amirov, the Leafs' first-round pick a couple years back, has a brain tumor. Obviously, you wish the best for him, but he's not going to be available. I don't see a team acquiring him. I mean, this is a touchy subject. I get it. But it's also business. It's pro sports. A team is not going to acquire a guy that has an injury issue, a potential health issue that could cost him his life. That's just the facts of life. So Robertson is that piece. There's nobody's clamoring for Timothy Liljegren. They're not going to trade Sandin because that's their position of weakness. So if you could get a John Klingberg, I would try to get him. I would try to acquire him. Because, however, I look at the Dallas Stars. They're a really quiet team. They're not talked about. They're not a sexy team. They're not in a sexy market. But they're on fire. They're winning a lot of games. Jamie Benn has found his old self. Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski. Dallas is it's the most interesting team for me when it comes to the trade deadline, because they are pushing to make the playoffs. And I trust Dallas and their group of players to play well down the stretch more than the Los Angeles Kings, because I've seen Dallas's players recently get to a Stanley Cup final, battle through, and they just have guys that are going to want to dig in and make the playoffs. Joe Pavelski, if he's going to tell management, if he's going to tell Jim Nill, okay, keep me here, keep me past the deadline, it's going to be because he believes that the Dallas Stars can make the playoffs. Because Pavelski's not getting any younger. I'm sure he'd love another crack at a Stanley Cup. He's gotten to a final. He's gotten to conference finals in San Jose. Hasn't lifted the trophy yet. I view him very similar to a Claude Giroux, where both guys are fantastic. You could argue they're fringe Hall of Famers, but they're missing something on their resume, and that's the Stanley Cup ring. So you got Pavelski's a UFA at the end of the year. He's currently making $7 million, but the way he's played this year, he's worth that money. John Klingberg, he's a 29-year-old defenseman. He's good. I don't think he's a number one defenseman. I think he'd be a solid number two on your team. He'll want a big raise. He'll want a long-term extension. Toronto is not going to give that to him. They're not. So they don't like to trade for rentals. I get that, because you're giving away a prospect you think can be in your organization for years, plural, for a guy that you know you have for a finite period of time. So if that's not your route, then you go the way how I pontificated last week about my trade scenario. And that would be, well, if Muzzin's off the books because he's on long-term injury reserve with his concussion, it opens up cap space for you. So you could make a trade for a guy like Ivan Provorov in Philadelphia. I said originally you could trade Provorov for Nylander because Philly needs scoring. They're going through a rebuild. You get a guy that could at least give you some scoring. I don't see Dubas parting with Nylander. I'm just saying a hypothetical world here. But with Muzzin's money off the books, you could make a move for Ivan Provorov, and it would make sense. It wouldn't be out of this world where you said, we have Nylander, who we like, great, having a really great year. And, Nylander used to be the punching bag in Toronto. Now he's loved. So kudos to him for changing that narrative about himself. But, as much as Leaf fans complain about Mitch Marner, and I have to hear about it often, the dude's a star. He's a better player than Bill Nylander. There's no debate. Yes, he makes a lot of money, but you watch the game Saturday night, he was the best player on the ice. He's a special talent. And also, Kyle Dubas is not going to trade him. As much as a defense is a need, I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs could win a Stanley Cup with their current defense core. They need to make significant moves for me to even consider it. Because, yes, Florida's lost a few in a row, but I still think Florida is as good or better than the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning are the most dangerous team come playoff time until somebody beats them. I don't care who they lost in their third line. I don't care. They still have Vasilevsky. They still have Point. They still have the nucleus of what won them back-to-back Stanley Cup trophies. No team can say that. The only team that can is Pittsburgh. But their core is getting older. I trust them less than I trust Tampa Bay. Even though Pittsburgh has been on a tear since December, and, they get 2 wins over the weekend over the Rangers in a battle test affair. And then they beat Columbus last night. Crosby scores a game winner with a minute and a half to go. But significant moves need to be made. And the thing is, you can say, okay, we need to get this move, but every team that's in this is going to be looking to make a move. I don't expect Tampa Bay to make a major move. It'll be something quiet because they have what they need. They have the best goalie in the world. They have Braden Point. Their defense core has 2 number 1 defensemen on it, in Ryan McDonough and Victor Hedman. Not many teams can say that, and that is true. In Tampa, it is. You also have Eric Chernak back there and Sergachev, who are no slouches themselves. So for Toronto fans, I wouldn't panic. I wouldn't be a 10, but I wouldn't be a 2 either. Because if you didn't have faith in Peter Mrazek, say a week ago, you might want to start having some faith in him now, because Jack Campbell, clearly something's wrong. He lost some confidence. He's tired. There's something that's not right when it comes to Jack Campbell, because he doesn't look comfortable. He looks out of sorts. He's not the normal Jack Campbell where they lose 1-0 and he blames himself for the loss, which always gets on my nerves. But either way, he's not being that normal kiss-ass Jack Campbell. Seems irritated. They got Buffalo Wednesday night. I assume he'll get that start because they've been going back and forth. There's a good team to get back on track against, because Buffalo stinks. We'll see. But the deadline is 3 weeks tomorrow, March 21st. Of course, we're going to have a trade deadline special here To The Point. Trade deadline's on a Monday. So 3 weeks from today, trade deadline special. We'll go through all the trades. We'll get into all of it. But this is the team to keep your eye out for, the Dallas Stars. They are the most interesting team come the trade deadline, and they could be quiet because they could be buyers come the end of this. I'll pull up the standings here for the Western Conference. And as we stand, you have LA, who's in a playoff spot. LA is a young team. They are on the come up. You're hoping LA, I think LA is hoping they can get there. They got the Bruins tonight. They got some big games down the stretch to continue to prove what they can do. But Dallas has 61 points. They are 3 points out of a playoff spot right now. And a team that's sliding, a couple of teams that are sliding that I really look at. Vegas, I'm worried about Vegas. Seamus Fillmore, my co-host every Tuesday, will join me tomorrow on the podcast. We'll get more into detail about the Vegas Golden Knights. But they don't have a number one goalie. They're lacking depth. They're not getting production outside the Eichel line right now. They've fallen to third in the Pacific Division. If you make the move for Eichel, you let Fleury go for nothing, and you miss the playoffs in that first season, that's a tough look. It's a tough sell. And Vegas has been one of the best franchises when it comes to just production in a very short, finite period of time. However, you miss the playoffs in this scenario. I wouldn't want to be Kelly McCrimmon. I wouldn't want to be Peter DeBoer. Because what we've seen so far from the Vegas organization, they are not afraid to pull the trigger on firing somebody. They are not afraid to do it. They'll do it with ease. And I don't know. I worry about the Vegas Golden Knights. Their only saving grace is that they are in the worst division in hockey. However, that doesn't guarantee you anything. Edmonton's playing better than they have. LA has found wins. The Calgary Flames are the hottest team in the National Hockey League, playing fantastic hockey. I think it's a tough spot. But they're another interesting team. I don't expect them to make many moves because they can't. They have no salary cap. But they got Jack Eichel. Mark Stone's in long-term injury. Unless they trade a player to get him back on the roster, he won't be available, which is another interesting dilemma. Mark Stone, I believe, is legitimately hurt. But say he's available to come back in 2-3 weeks. And Vegas wants to use the Tampa loophole, which I have no problem with teams using, by the way, to evade the salary cap, which is, hey, you know what? You're hurt, but just be hurt longer until the playoffs so we can use your salary cap room to make a trade. Well, let's say they need Mark Stone. They're in a playoff race to the last 10 games. They need to make a decision within the next 3 weeks to trade a player off their roster to make that happen. And with Mark Stone's salary, which is $8 million, and Jack Eichel's salary, which is $10 million, and Petrangelo's, and they got a lot of big tickets on their roster, that player is likely going to be Riley Smith. Riley Smith has been in Vegas since day one. One of the steals they made with the Florida Panthers at the time. Now, they part with players very easily. But will they part with Riley Smith over the next 3 weeks to get Mark Stone back if they do need him down the stretch? I don't know. But I'm interested to see what they decide to do and how they play in the next couple weeks and how that leads to their ultimate decision. So that should be interesting down the stretch. Before we get off the NHL topic, I think, it's been a weird year when it comes to who should win the Hart Trophy, who's the best, who's been the best player in hockey this year. You still look at the top of the points leaderboard, McDavid and Draisaitl are still right there. So it's easy to point to them, although that's not where I always go. But then you look and say, well, Edmonton's a fringe playoff team. McDavid's had bad energy. I don't think McDavid's been that. It tells you how good McDavid is because I don't think he's been that good this season, and he leads the league in points. So just breathe that in for a second. But to me, we're almost 60 games into this season. To me, the two best players in the National Hockey League this season have been Austin Matthews and Jonathan Huberdeau. And I don't think it's crazy for Austin Matthews to be the leading vote getter, the front runner, the Vegas front runner to be the Hart Trophy winner right now. Because I think it's very hard to argue that he's not been the best player in the NHL this season. And I just want to clarify that. Austin Matthews is not a better player than Connor McDavid. He just isn't. Do I think he could surpass him? I find that hard to believe. I don't think you rule it out. I'm not one of those people that's just, well, nobody could catch Gretzky or stuff like that. However, to me, it's a sizable margin right now. But this season, Austin Matthews and Jonathan Huberdeau have been the two best players to me. They would be locks to be nominated for the Hart Trophy. Matthews is more highlighted because he plays on the most highlighted team in the NHL. And the reason, I think what really impresses me about Austin Matthews over the last couple years is I used to have a nickname for him, and it wasn't AM34 or whatever they call him, Mustache Pablo or Mustache Man. It was drive-by because he was the king of the drive-by. Defenseman would have the corner, would have the puck, loop-de-loo, not go for the puck, just a little drive-by, go by him, get some air, get a lather on, get a good skate, and keep on going. I can no longer call him drive-by because Austin Matthews has fully turned himself into a 200-foot player. He's a guy that, and I think who deserves it most of the credit for this is Mike Babcock. And I'm sure Leaf fans don't want to hear this, but Mike Babcock was telling Austin Matthews to play a 200-foot game for a long time. He didn't do it. He was drive-by. He was a guy that just didn't go for putt. He's worried about scoring goals, just being a great goal scorer. And people have great careers doing that. Ovi is not as great of a 200-foot player as Matthews. Never has been his entire career. Greatest goal scorer of all time. but didn't worry about that as much. Still an all-time great, lock Hall of Famer. But to see Matthews worry about both ends, hunt people down, strip guys off pucks, go in and what really I'm so happy to see from him is he's starting, and I still think he could do it more, is use his physicality. He's such a big man. He's a load on the ice. He's not easy to move. And my player comp to Matthews this year is a prime Eric Lindros. And Lindros, he doesn't have the hitting ability. He never will. But Lindros was such a force on the ice. He would hit you. He would score. He would strip the puck. You feared Eric Lindros. You don't fear Austin Matthews when it comes to him driving you through the boards, or you don't fear him, giving you a high stick or dropping the mitts and knocking your head off. But you do fear when you're on the ice against him, you're in your own zone. Is he going to track me down? He's done that enough this year that lead to goals where I think as a winger, you have to be looking over your shoulder saying, where's Austin? Or as a defenseman, he's not going to drive. He's coming at me. I need to be quick. I need to make a smart decision, or the puck could be in the back of my net. And so I think it's been so impressive what he's done this year. The quieter story, because it's Florida, because people don't care about the Florida Panthers, people who don't watch them, Huberdeau is a magician. He's a winger, so by osmosis, I'm sure most people would say, well, a center is more important. I don't disagree. However, Huberdeau is a phenomenal passer. He's a guy that also back checks every game, makes smart plays. He's so positionally sound. Again, he's a winger, but I find he makes the job for the centerman easier because he can collapse. He can make smart plays that gets the puck out of your zone without creating a problem. And I just look at him, his connection with Barkov, his connection with Duclair, who they've been playing with the majority of the season, is top-notch. It's always tape-to-tape passes. It looks effortless from these two. And I think both teams are in the same division. Both guys will be nominated for the Hart Trophy. I don't think it's really worth saying who would win it because we still have a lot of runway here. Picking an MVP with 2 months left in the season it's not something I like to do. It's just I'll let other people do it. But I look at Matthews, Huberdeau, and Igor Shesterkin have been the three best players in the NHL this season, in my opinion. Shesterkin in New York is playing phenomenal. His numbers are historic. What he's doing, he's allowing in the last 30 starts an average of 2 goals a game. That's unbelievable. To me, it's impossible at this point of the season, the way it's gone, for a goalie not to be nominated. And my two choices would be Markstrom or Shesterkin. And, Carey Price won a Hart Trophy. Jose Theodore won a Hart Trophy. It's not out of this world for a goaltender to win it, and I don't think it should be. It should be accepted. It should be fine, in my opinion, for a goalie to win this award. I don't know where this goes from here, but it's an interesting chat. I'm interested to see who will win and who plays well down the stretch here and who gets it all done. So we'll have to wait and see. Other big news of the day. This is an interesting one. Heard last night on Twitter, I saw Gordon Miller tweeting about it, James Duthie, and a lot of the main players at TSN, that basically that the IIHF, the World Junior Hockey Tournament, and a lot of the big tournaments going on, were thinking of banning Russia from competing. And of course, this has everything to do with the war with Ukraine. It has a lot to do with the way that Putin's handled business. And if you haven't watched the news, gone on social media, it's terrible what's happening in Ukraine right now. And in 2023, Russia is scheduled to host the World Junior Hockey Championship. They're also scheduled to host a World Championship. And so the IIHF intervened, stepped up and said, no, they're not going to have a World Junior tournament in, they're not going to have it in Russia. Russian teams are not welcome at these tournaments. They are banning Russia from international competition until the end of August 2022. And I have a few thoughts on this. And first off, I get why they're doing this, because Russia on the world stage looks terrible right now for a good reason. They look really immature, quite frankly. Putin just looks power hungry. And I'm not going to get in the whole political angle here, but this really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But also, I don't like it for the kids. And I look and say, you can validate this decision based on what was happening at the World Junior Tournament in Edmonton, where the Russian team was leaving the tournament after it got shut down because of COVID. And they were vaping on the plane, smoking cigarettes, acting very immature, quite frankly. And I understand the frustration. I understand why they did this. But I think the kids deserve the chance to play for a gold medal. They are not the ones starting this war. They didn't cause this war. And yet they are being punished for the behavior of the leader of their country. And it's so much a gray area. I get it. It's very difficult to blur those lines, if you will. But I don't like it. I would let the teams play. I don't think it's a great idea. I think, like, Matvei Michkov is a 17-year-old. We saw him at the World Junior Hockey Tournament in December. Such a skilled player. Will be drafted with Connor Bedard. I think he's just as good as Bedard. He's not going to be playing at the World Junior this summer. Potentially not playing at the World Junior in 2023. So he's going to miss out on this experience during his draft year as an underager because his president is a crazy mother effer. In life, you shouldn't be painted all under the same umbrella. Just for instance, if somebody white does something bad, I don't think you should be labeled that all white people are bad people. That wouldn't be fair in my view. Well, just because the leader of your country is doing something doesn't mean every citizen of that country agrees. I think we're seeing most Russian citizens are against Putin on this decision. Alex Ovechkin, who's been a Putin supporter, has come out and said, stop the war. We saw over the weekend Daniil Medvedev, the Russian tennis star, asked for them to end the war, to get peace with Ukraine. So these are Russian professional athletes, Russian people that are in the limelight. They don't want this to continue. They don't want this to keep going. And yet, you're punishing the wrong people. Because do you think Vladimir Putin cares? I really don't. You didn't hear him complain about at the Olympics where the Russia competes under the Russian Olympic Committee because they are so known for cheating. They are so known for, getting clean urine and changing it out for their contaminated urine full of performance enhancing drugs. So punishing kids for doing nothing wrong seems like the wrong message to me. Because it'd be different if this was Canada. And I genuinely mean that. Because I think Trudeau, just if he's in this, let's use this for an example. I think he'd take a ton of backlash because the World Junior Hockey Championship is so important to us as Canadians. And I'm not saying it's not important to Russia, but I think it's important for our political leaders as well. They watch the tournament. They root us on. It's an experience. Well, I don't think Vladimir Putin is turning on the tube to watch Russia, Austria. I feel like our elected officials would. They'd sit down at night with their significant other and their kids and watch the game. Because that's what Canadians do. So the parents of these young men, the kids, coaches, particularly don't bring back the coaches that were idiots smoking cigarettes on a plane last year, but coaches that are working to get an opportunity on the world stage miss out because of some power-hungry, leader from a country that is so fucking corrupt. You forget where it starts. I want to see Matvei Michkov. I might be going to this tournament. I'm upset that I don't get to see him play live, quite frankly. It's a selfish motive for me, but I want to see the kid play. And I'm not going to. So I'm fine with taking the World Junior Hockey Championship in 2023 away from Russia. Fine with that. Because why would you want to send young kids in? If the war is over, I wouldn't want to go to Russia. You hear stories about playing over there, playing in the KHL. It's not good. Late checks, people following you around. It's not a good environment. So I don't know where we go from here. But they're not going to be playing. And it significantly hinders the tournament as well in the grand scheme of things because Russia is a team that does very well at the World Junior Hockey Championship. So it improves Canada's chances of winning a gold medal a lot. But I find it interesting. I don't think it's the right decision, quite frankly. And I just hope that we can get this resolved, that the people in Ukraine stay safe, that we can move past this. We can get in a better spot. And hopefully just the world gets back to a rational spot, because I don't see it that way right now with the way it's gone over the last little while. But behind the scenes here, we'll be doing a little work to get Doug MacLean on the show. He's having some technical difficulties. So I'm going to take a little break here. I'm going to try to go live again here in just a little bit to get Doug on the show. So stay close. Hope to have Doug MacLean here on the show real soon. I'm going to work out some technical difficulties, and we'll be back in just a short time here onto the point. So everybody just take a breather, and we'll be back in a minute. Hey everybody. Doug is having some technical difficulties. I'm gonna have to call him on a different file. So unfortunately, it won't be live tonight. It'll be available as soon as the interview is over. I apologize for this. Hopefully, we can work out these kinks better in the future. But I'll be interviewing Doug. We'll be chatting, and it'll be available as soon as I'm finished the interview. So stay tuned. Stay ready, all of you loyal listeners. I appreciate you guys joining me tonight, and enjoy the interview with Doug. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I'll be back tomorrow, same time, 5:00, to chat to all of you. So have a great night, everybody, and as always, this has been To The Point.